What if your mission never ended? What if the 5-year deployment you accepted without question slowly stretched into decades, and long after hope should have faded, you were still expected to serve, without relief, without recognition, and without any promise of return? In the Imperium of Man, this is not a failure of planning. It is an accepted outcome. Across the vast darkness of the galaxy, countless Imperial warships continue their patrols long after the Imperium has stopped counting the lives aboard them. They drift through the void, fighting, repairing, and praying, unaware that in the cold calculations of fleet command, they are already gone. Declared lost. Written off. Useful only so long as they continue to endure. Warhammer 40,000 is a universe defined by endless war, but nowhere is that truth more brutally embodied than in the Imperial Navy. The Navy is the artery through which the Imperium survives, carrying armies, enforcing compliance, and holding back horrors that would otherwise consume humanity. Yet it is also an institution built on sacrifice so vast it becomes invisible. Ships are ancient, crews are replaceable, and individual lives hold little value against strategic necessity. Within this system served Lieutenant Commander Reth Varos, assigned to a lunar-class cruiser known as the Indomitable Wrath. His story is not one of glory or triumph, but of endurance pushed far beyond human limits. What began as a routine patrol became a 47-year sentence in the void, a slow, grinding erosion of body, mind, and faith. This is the story of a warship that was never meant to return, and of the people who continued to serve even after the Imperium had already decided they no longer mattered. What was meant to be a routine assignment began without ceremony. The Indomitable Wrath departed its anchorage under standard orders, a 5-year patrol along a distant sector fringe. Such missions were common in the Imperial Navy, especially for lunar-class cruisers, reliable, heavily armed vessels designed to project Imperial authority into unstable regions. There was no farewell broadcast, no promise of swift return. Crews understood that delays were possible, that warp travel was unpredictable, and that schedules meant little in the vastness of space. For the first few years, the patrol unfolded as expected. The ship intercepted raiders, escorted convoys, and responded to scattered distress calls. Then the years began to stretch. Resupply points were missed. Messages from Fleet Command grew infrequent, then stopped altogether. At first, officers reassured the crew. Communications lag was normal. Relief fleets could be delayed. The Imperium was vast. But 5 years became 10, and 10 became 20. New crew members were born aboard the ship, while veterans aged into exhaustion. Slowly, an unspoken truth settled over the Indomitable Wrath: this mission was no longer temporary. It was indefinite. Yet the ship continued onward, following orders that were decades old, because in the Imperial Navy, orders do not expire. Duty does not end simply because time has passed. The void offers no reminders of how long one has been forgotten. Life aboard the Indomitable Wrath was defined by endurance rather than living. The ship carried tens of thousands of crew, packed into layers of steel corridors, maintenance shafts, and habitation decks that had not been designed for comfort, or even long-term habitation. Work cycles ran without pause. Gun crews, engineers, and ratings rotated through shifts that blurred together, marked only by exhaustion rather than clocks. Rations were strictly controlled, nutrient-paced, recycled water, and protein blocks rationed to sustain function, not morale. Privacy did not exist. Entire families slept in shared compartments, surrounded by the constant hum of machinery and the distant thunder of weapons fire. Generations lived and died without ever seeing a planet's surface. Illness spread easily, injuries were often untreated, and replacement crew were drawn from within the ship itself. Over time, individuality eroded. Crew members were defined by their function alone. Names mattered less than station numbers. Survival was not a right, it was a requirement. To falter was to endanger the ship, and to endanger the ship was to invite punishment. In this environment, hope was not encouraged. It was considered a liability. Command aboard the Indomitable Wrath rested with Captain Morai, a man shaped entirely by Imperial doctrine. To him, the ship was not a community, but a weapon system, and the crew were components to be maintained or discarded as necessary. Discipline was absolute. Orders were enforced without discussion, and failure, no matter how minor, was treated as a threat to operational integrity. Punishments were public and severe. Crew members who delayed, questioned commands, or showed signs of weakness were executed by spacing, their deaths broadcast as warnings. The purpose was not cruelty for its own sake, but efficiency. Fear ensured compliance. Under Morai's rule, loyalty was not earned through leadership, but extracted through terror. Officers learned quickly that mercy could be interpreted as weakness, and weakness as heresy. Over time, the crew internalized this reality. They obeyed not because they believed, but because disobedience meant death. In the Imperial Navy, survival is not proof of worth, it is merely evidence of usefulness. And usefulness can end at any moment. As resources dwindled and the ship's systems degraded, Captain Morai introduced a policy he termed voluntary sacrifice. Officially, it was framed as an opportunity for the crew to demonstrate loyalty to the Emperor. In practice, it was coercion. Crew members were expected to take on longer shifts, more dangerous repair assignments, and additional responsibilities without relief. Refusal was noted, recorded, and remembered. Those who volunteered were praised publicly. Those who hesitated found themselves reassigned to hazardous duties or marked as unreliable. Slowly, the distinction between faith and fear disappeared. Prayers continued, but they became rote, recited not from belief, but from habit and survival instinct. The Emperor was no longer a symbol of protection or hope. He was an abstract authority invoked to justify suffering. Faith became mechanical, something performed, not felt. The crew did not question why they suffered. They questioned only how long they could endure. In this way, belief did not die dramatically. It eroded quietly, replaced by obedience without conviction. Years later, Lieutenant Commander Reth Varos uncovered the truth buried within fragmented fleet records. The Indomitable Wrath had been officially declared lost decades earlier. In the cold calculus of Imperial strategy, the ship was no longer an asset worth tracking. Its absence had been noted, its loss accepted, and its continued existence deemed irrelevant. No relief fleet had ever been dispatched. No rescue operation had ever been planned. The crew were not forgotten by accident, they had been abandoned by design. From that moment on, every order they followed, every battle they fought, was carried out by a ship that no longer existed on any official ledger. They were ghosts, still bleeding for an Imperium that had already moved on. Varos understood then that survival had never been the goal. Delay had. As long as the Indomitable Wrath continued to fight, it served its purpose, regardless of the cost. After nearly 5 decades in the void, an unexpected transmission arrived. Orders for a rendezvous. A port rotation. For the first time in a generation, hope spread through the ship. Crew members whispered of open skies, of rest, of lives beyond steel walls. That hope was brief. The final orders were clear. The Indomitable Wrath was to engage an enemy force and hold position, long enough for a more valuable convoy to escape. There was no extraction plan. No contingency. The ship was to fight until it could no longer function. And so it did. Its guns fired until power failed. Its hull was breached, deck by deck. There was no evacuation order, because none was expected. The ship fulfilled its role exactly as intended, not as a survivor, but as a sacrifice. In the Imperium of man, this is not tragedy. It is policy. The Indomitable Wrath was no longer a vessel. It had become a monument to endurance, a floating testament to what the Imperium demanded of those who served. Lieutenant Commander Reth Varos and his crew had spent nearly 50 years in the void, their lives measured in shifts, repairs, and prayers that no one would hear. They had survived hunger, disease, exhaustion, and the constant threat of execution, all while believing that their service mattered. And yet, the truth was undeniable: they had been written off long before they even knew it, their efforts invisible to those who commanded from distant star systems. There would be no medals, no honors, no stories told of their sacrifice. Their existence had been valuable only insofar as it preserved the lives and resources deemed more important by the Imperium. As the Indomitable Wrath finally met its end, consumed by enemy fire and the vacuum of space, the crew faced the culmination of decades of obedience. There was no fanfare, no ceremony, no recognition. Only the quiet, crushing reality that their loyalty and faith had been tools, their endurance exploited until it was no longer necessary. Yet, even in that darkness, there was a form of meaning, a grim, bitter honor in the fact that they had fulfilled their duty completely, without question or hesitation. They had done what the Imperium required, even when it demanded the impossible. They had served, even when survival was uncertain and hope was scarce. The story of the Indomitable Wrath is a reminder that in the Imperium of man, heroism is not always celebrated, and sacrifice is often invisible. The greatest horror is not death itself, but the knowledge that lives can be consumed without acknowledgement, that duty can outweigh humanity, and that loyalty can be repaid only with oblivion. Reth Varos and his crew are gone, their names unrecorded, but their endurance lingers as a stark testament to the cost of service, the cruelty of a system built to survive at any price, and the indomitable human will that perseveres even when forgotten. In the void, there are no victories, only survival, and even that is fleeting.